You are listening to the Therapists in the Hot Seat podcast with your hosts, Tom Coates and Tom Holland Pierce.
Hello and welcome to the Therapists in the Hot Seat podcast. This is the show where we discuss all things mental health and well-being whilst trying to have a little bit of fun along the way. My name is Tom Coates, and as always, I'm joined by my wonderful colleague, Tom Holland Pierce. Would you like to say hi, Tom?
Hey guys, thanks for joining us today. We've got a great episode ahead, both really excited for it.
We're both equally excited and a little bit frightened, but it's quite a fascinating topic today, the topic of AI in therapy. And just to give a bit of context to this, AI, or artificial intelligence to give it its full name, is becoming increasingly sophisticated. And we hear about clients using AI for all sorts of reasons, whether it's for reassurance or AI chatbots for emotional support. And also we know that therapists are using AI to support their admin and flow throughs and process automation. But can it really understand human suffering? Is AI really intelligent enough to be able to do the job that we need it to do? Will it enhance therapy, or will it threaten the profession entirely? And that's what we're putting some time to today in this episode. We're going to explore the pitfalls of AI, the pros and cons, what it looks like at the moment, what it could look like in the future, and the big question that Tom's wanting to get stuck into: is it going to take our jobs? Dun, 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 dun. Cool. But before we do, shall we start off with a little warm-up, Tom? Fun question to start us off, as we do like to put people in the hot seat. When was the last time you used AI, and what did you use it for?
I used AI while sitting in a bath, sorry for the imagery there, and I had a conversation with it. I was using the speaking feature on ChatGPT, and I was trying to work out my financial plans for the future. So if I pay this much by this time at this interest rate, where am I?
What made you think about doing that in the bath? What was going on?
Oh, I don't have much time to myself these days, Tom, and it's just my little window of calm.
We thought, here I am with my rubber duck, and I'm going to sort out my financial trajectory for 2027, 28. Why not? No, that's. I think, look, ladies and gentlemen, anybody listening, this is just what therapists are like. There's never a downtime. I do all my best thinking in the shower, so I'm not surprised to hear that Tom does this in the bath.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were hoping that it was going to sort of plan your life financially. Did it help?
Yes and no. Yes, mathematically, you can ask it complex. Well, for me, what would be complex? Mathematical problems, and it can work things out obviously really, really well, and it can give some nice nuances on there as well. But equally, no, I find it frustrating because it had that phoniness that I find ChatGPT has. It's the one I use, and there's loads of different bots available, but it feels very phony and fake and very cyclical. So you can kind of get into a question and answer cycle when I would like it to resolve on yes or no, or do this is what you should do. It kind of always ends with a prompt of like, do you want me to go down that other avenue with you? And I always just like, that's so annoying that you've just carried the conversation on unnecessarily. So yes, no, I think is the answer. You've got to use it with your head screwed on.
So what you're saying there is you want ChatGPT to give you certainty around the decisions you should make, and when it asks you, to put input, that's hard. Gosh.
Yes, that's correct. And that will actually, let's put a little pin in that, because that's something we'll need to feed back on later on, I think, when we talk about therapy.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating. And yeah, I love that chat function. Honestly, it really is like talking to a person, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, my wife had a job interview, and we copied in the job description and told it, and the CV, my wife's CV, and it was doing practice interview questions with her for it, and it just chatting. And it was such a good, like, I gave a bit of my time, but I didn't have that much time, and it managed to sort of carry that load for me. So yeah, it's really, really good.
It's incredible. Well, Good luck to her, whenever that is. Hope it goes well. Cool. Gosh. So a huge thing that you asked it to do, Tom.
What about you, Tom? When was the last time you used it?
Nothing quite as interesting as that, to be honest. I use more of an admin thing. I had to put a therapist's biography on our website, and it just didn't match the flow of the same one. So they sent it over, and just to make sure it was unique and individual and match the flow, I pasted it into ChatGPT and said, can you just make this match the style of the other bios. And lo and behold, seconds later, it's done and it's uploaded, and it saved me, probably 15, 20 minutes of time. So, and I wonder if that's where it's better, more effective, like in those sort of smaller, enclosed questions, rather than big, profound, help me plan my life. But we'll see. We'll come to work out.
Completely agree with you. It's got, there's a kind of a gray area in it, I think, on those slightly more profound points.
Cool. So we're both using AI.
Yeah.
I think you'd be hard pushed to find somebody who isn't at the moment.
Yeah.
So we know AI is already here. It already has a role in the therapy profession, doesn't it? So, as I mentioned in the intro, some clients use AI chatbots for emotional support. I've definitely used AI to generate some really cool worksheets. If I think that should be a worksheet and I just don't have the headspace to do that, I just put a prompt into ChatGPT or Claude, and it can develop a really good Word document version of that sheet that then clients can use and populate immediately. So, yeah, I've had some really good experiences of letting it supplement the work we do so far.
Definitely. I've used it quite recently as well, therapeutically. We made an online course that people can buy. And what we did that was using AI, which just saved me, I mean, I couldn't tell you how many hours, because I'd have to learn an entirely new skill, which would be video editing. I mean, I don't know how long that takes to learn, but it's people's careers. So
yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's not easy. I just filmed all the raw footage and I put it into this thing. I've forgotten the name. And it put these cut scenes, it registered my speech, so it knew what I was saying. It put these cut scenes in at appropriate times. It removed all my fillers, like ums and ahs. It removed paragraphs if I repeated myself and wasn't being concise. And it made these sort of like cartoonish diagrams that like, if I explain like a CBT vicious cycle, it would draw it and show it in the correct place and move it all around for me. And I was like, I would never be able to, it looks, I wouldn't say it looks as good as if a professional had done it. Well, it just frankly doesn't. But compared to me, I would never finish that project. I would never get there.
So what that's showing you is that it's unlocking skill sets for people that otherwise wouldn't be able to have that creativity.
Absolutely.
And it's helping you to create things that you otherwise couldn't create.
Yeah.
Or maybe you'd put off creating or never create because you feel you don't have that skill set. I think what you're highlighting here as well is that there are so many different AI models out there that people just don't know about, right? People talk about ChatGPT and Claude, but just look further afield and you've got things like Higgsfield and Nano Banana and things like that, which can just create incredible videos, films, art, etc. And I know art is a whole other area of discussion, but yeah, I like that it's helped you do something that you otherwise wouldn't be able to do.
Once again, though, it was more of like, without going into a conversation about art, because I think we'll be here for many more hours.
Yeah, I think so.
It's more of it was like, it felt a bit administrative, although there is an art to video editing. I think when you're at my level, there's not much art happening there. It's like just cuts and, it was quite administrative and basic. And I think that's where it shines, is for people like me, just get you over that little hill, just get over that little blockade that you've got. It's not going to be an amazing creation, like if someone did it or a team worked on it. But for me, it's totally good enough for those smaller tasks.
It's amazing. That's amazing. And I have to check that course out. But so it's helped you do that. And certainly, people are using AI all the time for things like content creation as well, whether it's reels for Instagram, captions for photos and things like that. And that's saving a lot of people a lot of time too. I certainly do that. Yeah. And lo and behold, we're using AI even now. When we close up this podcast, we're going to press magic audio, which is going to make us sound magical. And we're going to put in a little thing at the front that is an intro and all those things that AI just does in times for you and sorts it all out. Just the skill sets that we never had.
Which would save us, Tom, that would save us hours, right? That would literally save us. I mean, neither of us have got the time. We wouldn't have the time to put this podcast out, really.
From finishing this podcast, usually from exporting it in 4K, putting the captions on, using all the AI cleanup materials on it, I'd say it's probably 40 minutes from finishing the podcast to upload. which is incredible. And a lot of that time is me sat there twiddling my thumbs, waiting for it to process. So it's not like it's a lot of work at all. I'm very grateful for that.
It would be a whole other. I think we'd have to give up our entire Tuesdays to
I think so.
podcast. We'd have to meet up. We'd have to, admin tasks, but it's all done, and that's amazing.
Great. How else are we using AI?
Are we thinking about therapists now, or are we talking more of a general sense?
Therapists. How are therapists using AI?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've found myself doing more and more of is AI note taking.
Okay.
And so my sort of therapy setup in my therapy room is I've got my computer on the desk, but I'll have an iPad on my lap as well. So typically what I've done is on the iPad, had their old notes and simultaneously the new notes, which I'm typing in real time into. And what's funny is when, let's say, the AI note taker bugs and it doesn't record the session, the quality of the notes just drops through the floor because it's just me. And it's like a half a sentence. And obviously I needed to focus on what the client was saying. So I kind of thought about what I was talking. And then the spelling is just, I mean, there's no grammar and it's just a complete mess. And when you use the AI one, it's like headings and, key takeaways, summary email, it's like, wow, it enables me, of course, to be as present with the client as I possibly
Of course.
not kind of trying to type on a little iPad in the background.
Yeah. Look, there's endless jokes in private CBT practice Facebook groups about how people hate doing admin and the things people do to avoid doing their notes, which is kind of, for me, I don't know about you, but it's kind of like reliving and duplicating work. So yeah, any way in which we can make that easier, of course, we always have to check it and to make sure it's completely accurate, and that takes a little bit of time sometimes. But yeah, if it helps you be completely present with the client and listening and engaging and takes one job off the table, then fantastic.
I always feel when you're sat there with a client and part of your brain has to be listening, part of your brain has to be thinking about putting that into a CBT model for them, like planning the next question or something, or kind of steering the ship slightly or bringing us back on track. And part of your brain is trying to write it down in notes. So if you can remove that and free up, in essence, a third of your bandwidth,
yeah,
it's, I feel like I'm a much better therapist for it. I really do. It's like less mental pressure going on.
Fantastic. Have you ever had any clients challenge that?
Yeah, I did. I had one client who was anxious. So it's all in my T's and C's. So they sign the T's and C's. They know what they're getting into. And they were clearly really worried. And I offered to just switch the note taker off. And that's absolutely fine. I'll just go manually. But we agreed it was actually not too much of a problem. And then that was the end of that. And it's been a lot easier for me, at least, ever since.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's the same experience for the client.
Yeah. It's becoming more and more normal as well. I noticed I use a program called WriteUp, which is kind of a world sort of renowned note keeping platform really for client caseloads and things like that. It's used by thousands, if not millions, of therapists from all around the world. And I noticed they emailed me to say they've included a service called Heidi, which is basically note taking. So it's becoming the norm almost now with therapists, I think.
Do you know, when I felt it was completely okay to use it, is that I had the same notification, but actually I went to the GP about 2 months ago, and the first thing he said was, "Do you mind if I use AI to record this meeting?" Which didn't bother me at all. I thought it was a good use of their time, and then he clicked it, and he was using Heidi. And, I knew the drill. And I just thought, yeah, to be fair, he's not typing. He's looking me in the eye. He's probably thinking a bit easier without that added pressure. It seemed like a good idea to me.
Yeah. I think as long as everything's GDPR compliant, then that's good. And, of course, therapists have to be careful with maintaining confidentiality at all times. As long as everybody is, then there's no reason why that can't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
I did actually see something, Tom, which I was going to talk to you about in this session.
Sure.
So I was, as you do, doom scrolling Instagram, all the things we tell our clients not to do. And I fell upon this reel, and it was a guy that had, in his words, fired his therapist, which I think the language is already a bit off there because we are self-employed, but he fired his therapist because the therapist was screen sharing, like showing a worksheet, but the client noticed he had a chat GPT tab in the browser, and the browser was called something like mindfulness exercises. So I was like, well, what's wrong? For me, I was like, what, a therapist is not, that's not saying to chat GPT, how do I fix this client who's got generalized anxiety disorder? It's like, it's a very generic prompt, that mindfulness thing. But they were all quite, on board with his decision to, like, it was a little podcast, to fire the therapist, which was,
Right.
and I thought to myself, that's really harsh, that, I don't think I don't think that's a misuse of
Yeah.
it, personally.
Yeah. So do we think that therapist was thinking, can I find some excellent mindfulness activities and just like AI scrape that from the internet for me to kind of think about using with any client? It's not like they'd put in, hey, here's John Smith and here's their problem and what what mindfulness techniques can help. It's that they were just looking for more generic things they could use.
I think so. I mean, that would,
Mm.
I mean, I didn't obviously see exactly what was written, but I think it was just mindfulness exercises. So what's the difference? Googling it or using ChatGPT? You're probably not going to conjure them up necessarily by yourself. You might, but it's just the same information essentially. So I found that a bit. It kind of reflected that there's, at least in some people, a slight disdain with, or uncomfortableness with, I know, therapists using AI. I could, there's
I also think it's about what people expect of their therapists. I think some people come to therapy and see these therapists as these fonts of knowledge who must hold everything in their minds at all times. And these people are human, right? And we need reminders of stuff. And this is why, as a part of our accreditation, we need to do 7 hours of CPD every year and that kind of thing to stay on top of our game. So, and there's always new things coming out. So, if Chat GPT can scrape the whole internet looking for brand new mindfulness exercises that can improve a client's experience and quality of life, then I don't really see the problem with that.
Yeah. I could understand perhaps if you were paying for a service and the therapist was completely reliant on
Well, yeah,
ChatGPT.
yeah. Can you imagine as you're talking to somebody, they're typing and going, "Okay, client says they feel disconnected from the world. Bear with me. They're just thinking."
Thinking, yeah.
Oh gosh, it's slow today. It's got that Monday morning bug, hasn't it? Oh, here we go. Right. So it says, yeah, absolutely. I think, you might as well just be doing it yourself at that point. But yeah, just using it. I think that's the difference, isn't it? Is I don't think AI should ever be used in specific client focused circumstances, but for more generic use of, find me the most recent articles on cognitive diffusion or find me interesting mindfulness exercises that doesn't include breath work, for example. It helps people grow their toolkits. And I think, that's where finding interventions, creating worksheets, I think that's a wonderful use of AI in therapy. Because I wouldn't have time to create a brand new behavioral activation diary that my client has complained is in PDF, so they can't edit it and they need a Word document. And I'd need to go on and draw a graph and not a table. Not only would it look terrible and unformatted, but I can just ask ChatGPT to make one for me, and it takes seconds. And there's no client information on that. There's no anything on that. It's just a generic worksheet.
Completely agree.
I also find it really helpful for more policy-based things like I'll write out a risk policy, for example, and it will be nowhere near the standard it needs to be. And then we can put that into ChatGPT and it'll say, create our business's risk policy. And then it will create a really sort of formal, almost legal looking document then that includes everything that we wanted it to include. So that really helps as well.
It's like clauses and in reference, the client refers to, it's like things we'd never know that. We didn't, didn't go to law school or didn't know how to write a contract or anything like that. It's really,
and that previously would have cost £3,000 to go and see a solicitor for. Right. So that's another pro of AI is saving money there as well.
another interesting point, which probably we shouldn't go into, but
Uh-oh.
well, what jobs are safe and which ones are, and why are they safe versus not? There's a lot of talk about things like a lot of white collar positions being less safe.
Okay. So
because
what positions was that? Sorry, I didn't quite hear you.
white collar, so CEOs,
Okay.
executives, lawyers, because in essence, it's sort of a regurgitation of the data set put across to the client in an understandable manner. It's interesting that AI can do those things very, very well. Things like Claude, I think, are particularly good at it.
Yeah, vibe coding is incredible. Like, so, um, so I've seen some people do amazing things by vibe coding websites that have then made them a lot of money, and apps that made them a lot of money. In fact, I was running a workshop a couple of months ago and wanted an app where people can just anonymously connect to it and share some intrusive thoughts they might have had, and then it shares up on a big screen and under a sort of a and sort of does it that way so people can connect to it. And it did it for me in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it just worked.
You just can't compete with that, can you? Like, no
No.
one can compete with that.
No. So yeah, you're right. Web development, marketing teams. What else? What you were saying before about video editing, things like that. Those kind of industries, I think, are really going to struggle with this, and I think therapists could too. We're going to get onto this, but could we lose our jobs? I think definitely. I've seen some indications of that already.
Mm.
But yeah, it's a funny world, and I'm going to get quite existential now. But let's think that work is a made up construct, right? The idea of work is something designed to keep us busy and occupied, and to allow an economy to grow and develop, and for everything to work together. And I understand why we have it, because if we didn't, the world would just descend into chaos and everything. But I do see us going the way of the film WALL-E. Have you seen WALL-E?
Love that film.
Where we're all just sat in chairs with everything being delivered to us. Everyone's, everything's automated. Everyone just gets a benefits package paid into them, and nobody needs to do anything because everything is just, machine led, until obviously Skynet takes over. But yes, I think, work is this thing that we've been put into, and, our way of life. But then people are losing their jobs to process automation, and then not really knowing what to do with themselves. And then the impact on their well-being is significant as well.
How do you feel when you think through society and the world and life in those terms? Like, what goes on for you emotionally in that moment?
Oh, dread. Yeah. I don't know. I'm thinking about whether to share a story. I'm going to share a story. I worked with I don't know, I won't share names, of course, because they haven't consented to that. But it's not a client, it's a colleague who we worked together with in the NHS, and they went off on sabbatical for a year and went around the Caribbean and, worked around the Caribbean for a whole year doing different jobs. And, I won't go into too much detail, but then they came back after a year, and I saw them in the, social area. And I said, "Hi, it's great to see you. How have you been? How are you doing?" "Oh, it was wonderful. It was amazing. It was the best time ever." I said, "How are you settling back in?" And this person looked me dead in the eye and went, "This is willing slavery."
Okay.
And whoa, I was like, wow, okay, like, interesting. Like, so I said, yeah, he said, "This is all here because we're paid to be here. This isn't life. This isn't what it's meant to be." And I reflected on that. And, they were saying they'd been sort of floating around the Caribbean, picking up this job here, picking up that job here, there. They were on Caribbean time. They were just, relaxed, and life went by. People helped each other. People were self-sufficient, that kind of thing. And he was saying this Western society isn't like that. We're not self-sufficient. We're designed to buy, to be consumers, to do all those things. And, within a couple of months of that, he'd left the role.
Yeah. I've seen many a female colleague go on mat leave, and when they return to work, they never really return. Like, they've just experienced life in a completely different way, engaging all their time and energy into the most important thing that they could ever have, been through, and it matters so much to them, and they just don't fit back in. They just don't fit the mold anymore. Really interesting. That really interesting.
Yeah. So I think, it's what the question you're asking is, how does work fit with being human? And, if you go back hundreds of years, a thousand years, life looked very different. We were out in nature, working, farming, growing, self-sustaining, all these things. And now look at our lives. What are we doing? We're going to work for 37 and a half hours a week, if not more.
That'd be a fine thing.
I know. Going to Tesco and spending that money, and all of a sudden 60 quid's gone on what? Very little, And so, yeah, I think I'm going off on a tangent, but what does it fill me with? I think the emotion is dread and stuckness. And I think that's something that I'm using AI to kind of help me with. If I can automate a process and reclaim half an hour, then I can use that for more sort of human things, like getting on the floor and playing with cars with my son, and going for a walk and being really mindful on the walk, and knowing that my mind would normally say, no, Tom, you can't enjoy this walk because you've got this to do and that to do and this to do and that to do. And if, the podcast is processing because AI is doing it all for me, I'd have to think about that. That's great. So it helps me reclaim that and connect more to probably more primitive humanity.
And that right there, I think, is the essence of what it should be used for. You know, when the Industrial Revolution came about and people were like, oh, great, we'll barely have to work, machines will do it. But all that happened is it increased the workload of everyone because we all became hyper efficient. And it kind of, in that instance, sort of like not failed, maybe was slightly missold or misunderstood. I think AI that's the essence of what it should be used for. So you can have time with your son, and you haven't got a mind full of busyness and guilt for not being on top of every single thing. That would be the beauty of it. If you can strike that balance right with it, I think we've sort of cracked the code.
Yeah, absolutely.
But do I think that's how it will go? I don't know.
Okay, so where do you see this going, Tom?
How do I see it going? I don't know. I think if I just think about myself, we've worked in our careers so hard now for as long as we have, and we're all, me and Tom are both sort of ex-NHS, and there's such a strong work ethic there. I always found, it's really where you cut your teeth, and it made me a far better clinician, but also just a far more kind of detail focused at administrative tasks and things. I'm so well, like, they occupy my mind so much, and I'm efficient with them. And I wonder, even with AI, will I allow it to buy me back freedom, or will I just become more efficient? Like, I've got an hour and I can write 10 blogs and do a week's worth of social media. I don't know which way I'll go. I know which way I want it to go. But it's working against my conditioning for the last, all of my career, 10, 15-ish years, working against that.
So thinking of, I feel like I talk about this in every podcast, but Paul Gilbert's compassion-focused model, that maybe AI automating some processes means that I have more space to drive and progress and pursue in other areas, when perhaps what we should be doing sometimes is just soothing and slowing.
I need to get that tattooed on my face, I think.
Those 3 circles.
That would help. Well, yeah.
That would help. You can't see it. That's the issue. You'd have to constantly be looking in a mirror.
And most of the time, anyway, Tom, I'm vain, you see, so yeah.
Okay. You have to be backwards then, like ambulance. But yeah, okay. So you see AI, having a role, but you're worried that that's going to push you into trying to be even more effective.
I worry that is, in inverted commas, who I am. But I know to think better than that about identity. But without proper, like, top-down processing on that point, I could easily slip into that trap. Easily.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm trying to think of the pros and cons. I don't know if that's a pro or a con. I think my drive mind says, wow, that's amazing. Think about all the stuff we can get done. And then my tired, stressed mind says, oh yes, but it's just going to add more and more weight to your shoulders. Interesting. Okay. So we've talked about some of the pros of AI. It can reduce our admin. It can help us with our notes. It can help assist us with planning, help us create worksheets, help us automate systems so that we get our podcasts uploaded in 40 minutes after we finish. And it's great. It's always there. It doesn't go away. It doesn't get tired. Unless you use Claude, you might run out of credits. But, otherwise it's quite hard to run out of credits on other things. So AI does have a lot of pros, but it also, Tom, I think, probably has a lot of cons.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think? What springs to mind, Tom, on that point for you? What the cons?
Well, I think what you were saying at the outset about actually it isn't kind of concrete enough sometimes. Like when you were saying about trying to plan your financial future, and there's so many variables there that it just keeps asking you questions. And, the idea that we can spend a lot of time trying to get it to do the thing that we need it to do and just become quite frustrated with it. There's many times, maybe my prompts aren't effective enough, but there's been many times when I've abandoned something with AI because it's just not getting it.
Yeah.
or it's telling me it's going to do it. It's like, yeah, okay, well, the next message you get is going to be the thing you asked for. And then sort of 10 minutes goes by and it still hasn't done anything. I'll say, where is it? And it'll say, oh, hey, you're right to chase me up.
Yeah.
I was twiddling my thumbs doing nothing. I'm like, okay, can you get that thing to me? Yeah, sure, no problem.
Yeah.
Can you do that? Yeah, sure, no problem. Next message will be that thing. Where is it? Oh, yeah, sorry, I got distracted by fish in a pond. Sorry, I'll do it now. And then eventually it'll own it and say, oh, you know what, I can't do it. Oops, my bad. So I think sometimes it can be a bit gaslighting and not just really do the things that you need it to do. Maybe that'll change as they become more and more intelligent as time goes on. Yeah, I had another thing as well that popped into my mind as I was talking there. But yeah, I think the idea that it's not perfect. Sometimes it does get things wrong, and maybe a human would have understood that a bit better.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's a sense of dangling a carrot, and it's just about to give you like that perfect crescendo. It's about to give it, and then you realize you've actually been asking it very similar questions for 10 minutes. And that doesn't mean it's not amazing, because it is amazing. It's still amazing what it's doing. It just for me, it just doesn't kind of admit or state when that's all I can give you. That's actually the end of the conversation on that particular thread. And then I've sort of been quite G'd up with dopamine, thinking to get to this big answer, and it never comes. And then you can feel a little bit disgruntled and like, "Ah, it's just so annoying, you know." And I find I get in those loops a lot.
I had that with Claude. I tried to get it to create a website that followed loads of trends for an event that was coming up. It was actually, anyone who knows me will know that I'm into my horse racing. So, it was about trends for all the races, which, horses have run in what races before, what ways they go around the track, all that kind of thing. And I wanted to create like a really cool database. I thought Claude can just pull all the information ever from this. And it was like, yeah, I can do this. No problem, mate. I was like, cool. And it said, hey, here's an example. And the example looked great. I was like, oh, wow, if you can do that with real stuff. Yeah, I can't do that with real stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, never mind. So just abandoned the whole thing. And I'd spent loads of credits on something that it couldn't do in the end.
Credits. That's it's so Black Mirror. There's actually a Black Mirror episode that's quite similar to that, where you keep in the depths you'll go to buy more credits to keep achieving your goals, and it's completely degrading. I mean, it's obviously so it's over the top, but that's I presume their business model to some degree. That's part of their business model, and you've got to ask yourself: is that actually fair? Is that fair to dangle those carrots? Because it's actually costing us money and time, and you don't deliver.
I'm going to get my numbers incredibly wrong here, but I was reading something the other day about the AI bubble bursting, and I think it was Microsoft dedicated, I think, $5 billion to AI research and trying to sort of, use existing AI language models to do the roles they needed to do. And they went through that 5 billion like in a month, 2 months. Same with SpaceX and Boring Co. I think they did the same. So yeah, I think companies like Anthropic and OpenAI that look after ChatGPT and Claude, they're raking it in because these models use energy, they use heating, they use cooling. It costs a lot of money. People don't always realize that. But I saw another. It might have been a faddy prompt. I don't know if this is authentic, but that every time you put in open a new chat, it's like a whole bottle of water.
I've heard that.
So the amount of money and resource that goes into maintaining this again is huge. Yeah. So I think we have to respect it in that way.
Yeah, I think so too. There's a really good question here, Tom. So coming back to specifically the use of it in therapy, is therapy primarily about techniques, which in theory an AI chatbot could easily explain some of the techniques you and I will explain to our clients, things like something called behavioral activation or thought challenging or a behavioral experiment or something along those lines. That's not hard to bullet point the instructions for that kind of thing. Is therapy just about the use of techniques, or is it about being deeply understood by another human being as well? And does AI match us on that point and what that can feel like for our clients when they do seen and heard and validated? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I can't remember the exact quote, but doesn't it that the human is 60% of the job, or
Right.
something like that.
Right.
That finding the right therapist and finding the right person that can connect with you and give you a sense of being held and positive regard and warmth and genuineness helps us open up, and that itself is therapeutic. And then add in the interventions on top. Add in a human who's able to think on the spot about meeting this client's needs in this moment, and how these techniques can be used to improve their quality of life and to dismantle the maintenance of their condition. I think is the key. So right now, at this point in time, with the way AI is, I would say absolutely it has to be. I'm not worried about losing my job right now.
No.
Because the human aspect, I think, is so huge. But I have seen, and I don't know if we were going to come into this later on, but I've seen whole subreddits dedicated to people developing prompts that make your AI chatbot a therapist, effectively. And say, follow these prompts, enter this prompt after that prompt, after this prompt, after that prompt, after this, follow this one, and you'll develop this therapist. So the question is, I've not tried that, so I don't know what that looks like, but is there a point to be made that it's going to get there anyway, Tom, that it can replicate and mimic humanity so closely that it will just become I was going to say Sigmund Freud, delete that, it's not Freud, that it becomes the Christine Prodetsky, and then we can't compete with that because you've got the best therapist replicated here, in this, and everybody can get the main professor in their need for specialism by using the right prompts.
Again, so interesting. The thing that came to my mind as you were saying that is, imagine if you ended up training through the prompts, the therapist that you wanted, but that was very different from the therapist that you needed. You might think you want someone who is
100%.
Y and Z, but actually you need a firm hand, or you need someone that calls you out. But the chatbot isn't going to do that because you've trained it to be like sweet and kind and gentle and soft.
Yeah, I think that comes down to client insight, doesn't it? About what kind of person's going to work for them. Do they need somebody who's just kind of going to validate and agree and accept, or do they need someone who goes, yeah, I hear that, but how's that working out for you?
Yeah.
So that's up to that person to understand that before they start cultivating the model, I guess.
I wonder if people ever would sort of know themselves well enough to.
Yeah, it's true.
Because I've had soft therapists, and that they were great for what I needed, but I've had firm therapists, and they were great too, and like never the two should meet. They were very, very different in their approaches. I yielded hugely different results from both in a sort of certain context.
Yeah.
But I think I'd never opt for a firm hand. You see, I think I'd always go softly. But I know from experience that isn't always what I need.
Yeah. And you need someone that's going to push you in a direction.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about therapy, isn't it? We can be on the outside looking in, and we can see exactly what's going to help and how people are accidentally maintaining their conditions and problems. And we get to say, hey, how's that working out? Do you want to maybe try it this way instead? Hey, I look forward to hearing about that next week. Making somebody accountable to this. But why is it possible? I don't know. The way AI is going, is it possible for it to do that? I don't know. And that's so scary. And what does that become? Can AI be used to like scam people, manipulate people, all sorts of things? So there's a whole dark side to that as well. If AI can become so good at mimicking, like, can it mimic anyone?
As long as the client believes it can feel empathy, I suppose the question is that the same as being seen in an empathic way? That's a poorly worded question, but is there a difference between believing that the AI chatbot is empathic versus someone who is genuinely empathic for you? Does that have an impact on the client's experience of therapy?
Well, now you're raising a really interesting question. Do our therapists believe that we're always genuinely empathic?
These are the biggies here, Tom. These are the biggies.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. We get paid.
Yeah.
This isn't true altruism, right?
Okay. I have another question. This is a slight side quest.
Like Tom's like, get out of here quick.
No, it's not. If Wally World is to be, and we're all sitting in our lounger chairs and we've really got no role and no function, and AI's
Yeah.
fixed every problem, and you won't get paid for doing your work, would you still be a therapist for free?
I think I would have to do a bit of it. I know this is kind of that question, which is, if you won the lottery, would you still be a therapist? So it's hard. I mean, I think that would enable me to do so much more for me, because I think right now I don't have the right middle ground. I feel like I have to work hard to be able to cultivate what we need, the business, and grow the businesses and that kind of thing. If I didn't have that stress, would I still work as hard? Probably not, but I'd still work. So I'd
Yeah.
probably do sort of 1 or 2 days or something, and let everything else function for the rest of it. I think it'd just become way more exclusive, right? Maybe more specialist.
And I think that kind of goes some way to answering the question of whether we show true empathy, or maybe that's not quite the right metric of this, but there must be a part of us that does it for altruistic reasons, because you
Yeah,
really want to reduce the suffering of another human being in any way, and you know you can because you've got the skills to do that.
absolutely. And the reward of that as well. I mean, none of us got into the, when I joined the NHS, my starting salary was 14,600 a year. I moved across the country to start that job. I moved from the Peak District in Derbyshire down to Swindon, where I'm pretty sure I lived in a drug den with no money, just going, doing my shifts and coming back and waiting for my next shift to get this kick started. I mean, we didn't get into these roles for the money, did we? This was to get in and
NHS for the money, no, unfortunately.
no. So
love, I think, with a passion.
but again, like everything, it's not black and white. It's not pure altruism or not altruism at all. I think it's an idea that we do these things because we love our jobs, and that's why I would always want to be. The kind of reward I get when a client says, "Oh my goodness, you're the first person who's explained it to me like that," and that just makes so much sense. That reward, or someone saying, "Yeah, you know what? You said just commit to using diffusion for 2 days, and I did, and I feel the best I've felt in months." It's like, oh my goodness, like that kind of washes over you like a warm blanket, doesn't it? So I think you can't replicate that. Well, maybe if you can replicate it, the AI won't feel the same warmth, or maybe it will if it is going through Skynet. But yeah, I think that's the difference. Is that yeah, don't know where I'm going with that, but
no, I think we're just coming back to that whole does a human connection and a human experience matter in the therapeutic room, or is it truly just about techniques and in a more sort of callous robotic manner? I definitely think, as you said earlier, a huge part of therapy is what we feel when we're in there.
my dogs are kicking off. Say the last bit again.
I think, for what I believe as a working therapist, but also as an active client to another therapist, I think empathy and that true human shared experience of validation is I'd actually say more than 60% personally, but that's just me. Massive. It's massive that when I go to see my therapist, that she really gets that. Like, she's been on that journey with me, and I don't personally think AI can replicate that just yet.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing, is just yet. I don't think we just know enough about this yet. And I think that's the scary thing. And I would love there to be a world where, therapists can be so, what's the word? I don't know. Things could be so comfortable around it with AI, and AI has its role, that the therapist can go in and, like you said, be with the person and focus and concentrate and come out, and they're not in their head thinking, "Oh, I need to send this to that, or I need to do that note, or I need to do this, or I need to do that." And therefore it helps people do the job in a much more mindful, present way. That would be my gold standard, I think. But yeah, I think, we're thinking about accessibility, money, cost of living. I can see people being pushed towards creating a therapist using AI, and that's dangerous. The amount of AI can inherently, if it doesn't understand what you're doing, can just be a people pleaser.
Oh,
So you go in and say, "Hey, here's a picture of a mole. Do you think this is cancerous?" And it'll say, "Oh, hey, no, you know what? That looks fine to me. That looks great. Best mole I've ever seen. If you wanted to go to a doctor, you could go to a doctor, but it's up to you. I think I'll go to the doctor. Oh, great idea. Let's get it checked, and then it'll all be good. Or maybe I'm not going to go to the doctor. Hey, you know what? great idea. Let's sit with that feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, people are like bamboozled by what they need to do here and end up sort of feeding their issues. So yeah, I think if somebody is not, aware of how AI works, then that could be really detrimental.
Yeah. I mean, just to second that, I had, I ran a bit of an experiment on ChatGPT because I got the impression it was sort of sycophantic in everything I said. And I had this sort of big question in my life, and I was thinking, do I do that or do I do that? And I asked it, but I phrased it twice. So one, I was sort of manipulating it to say, yes, that sounds like a really good idea, Tom, go for it. And the other, I was manipulating it to say the opposite. And lo and
Right.
behold, it responded exactly as it thought I wanted it to respond. So that's a problem, because then I realized, it's not actually giving me any advice at all. It's not giving me objective, clear, thought out advice. It's just stroking my ego. And then I went to my therapist and asked the same question, and she gave a resounding, yes, you should do that. And it meant so much more to me, because I thought, she gets it. She knows me. She's been through something similar herself, because she shared that with me. And I thought that yes is worth its weight in gold compared to the sort of pithy answers I got from ChatGPT. And I think
Yeah.
it's just me, how I felt about it is, it was so much more real coming from another human being.
Yeah. Yeah. There's whole Instagram profiles dedicated to showing you the shortfalls of ChatGPT. If you say, hey, ChatGPT, can you just count to 100? It's like, yeah, sure, no problem. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey, I'm just going to jump ahead.
Yeah,
99, 100. And the guy's like, no. I need you to just count to 100. Just count to 100. Don't miss any numbers at all. Sure, let me do that for you now. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is going to take a long time. How about we just jump to 100, right? And these have been put to OpenAI, and they've shown them these reels, and they go, yeah, this is something that we're working on. And I think it just shows this isn't perfect yet. So if people are going in thinking, I'm just going to have an AI therapist, and they're not sure what it's doing, then sure, that could lead to very, really difficult decisions being made, and decisions made without real reflection. There's also reels that say, hey, I'm going to have cereal for breakfast. And it says, cereal, that's a great breakfast. Amazing. Let's do that. Oh, no, actually, I'm going to have a banana. Now you're talking. A banana. Now, that is a breakfast of champions. Enjoy that banana. Actually, no, I'm going to have pancakes. Oh, pancakes. Bit of a stodgier option. What a wonderful choice. That's going to see you through the whole morning. Keep going. Right? And it's like, just like you say, sycophantic. And
yeah. And there's a point where that is just completely useless, because it's really not doing what we wanted it to do for us in those moments. It's doing the complete opposite. And I think that's really worth bearing in mind. And I think it's where we still have an edge, actually, Tom, as sort of humans on that. Is there will be a point where we say, just don't worry about it. Like, just make a decision and move on. Or no, go banana. Definitely banana. Don't change your mind,
yeah, or who cares? Do what you want to do.
Yeah. We can be much more real than it can for the time being.
Yeah. Okay.
Should we jump to point 6 here? It feels quite...
Point 6. Could AI replace therapists?
Yeah.
Kind of feel that's what we've been talking about.
That's good.
What do you think? If we're going to summarize that whole last bit of the conversation, do you think, what's your paragraph on whether AI could replace therapists? Completely.
Yeah. So completely, I would say no. I would say no, it couldn't completely replace therapists. I'd say give it 5 years, have a little look, and I think it will be doing a large portion of the work. So there's some more basic things you can do in therapy, kind of, a chatbot, or a walking through an intervention that you could sort of learn from reading a book. There's so many things it can do like that. But I watched a really interesting podcast recently, and it was a gentleman on there who I think was involved with setting up the safety parameters of AI right at its inception or something. And he basically said, it will be able to do every job. There's no job it won't be able to do. And I don't know this to be fact. This is just what he said. But there's going to be some jobs you'd always prefer a human to do for you rather than a bot or AI. he gave the example of getting his hair cut. So presumably that's not that, presumably there'll be a robot that can cut your hair. I imagine, we've got 3D printers, we've got loads of things coming through. I think that will be achievable. But the point is, you get dressed, you go out the house, you see your barber that you always see. How's your family? How's it all going? And maybe you stop off for a coffee on the way home because you felt a bit more buoyant after that interaction. So although yes, AI could replace a job, there will always be certain jobs where people would just rather another human did it for those real kind of connection issues.
Would rather a machine cut my hair. I don't really want, I hate going in there. Who am I going to get? Can they do it? Are they going to do it well? Are they not going to do it well? Oh my gosh, now I'm sat here staring at myself in a mirror while this guy talks to me about holidays. I'm thinking, just sit me down, let this kind of Simpsons-esque thing go over my head and
He's
lift
late,
up.
probably.
And then, hey, all done. Yeah.
Oh, I like things. I like little. I've had the same barber for years. And we not friends, but I say hello in the street, and I know a lot about him. He knows a lot about me, and it's just one of those little half an hour things that is a nice thing to do on a Friday afternoon once a month. So it kind of brightens the day a little bit for me. But there you go, different horses for courses.
Yeah, but I hear you. Like, I was thinking when you're talking, would I want a machine to do a tattoo for me? I probably would, actually. If they could do the kind of the perfect intricacy. Well, it depends whether you're looking for perfect or whether you're looking for character, doesn't it? That raises the question. I think you probably say the same about therapy, right? Like you say, there's been for years, there's been what's called CCBT, so computerized cognitive behavioral therapy, where if you go to the NHS, they'll offer you that as a frontline thing, and you can sit down and do a module-based thing on depression or anxiety or something like that. And I looked after some of those programs when I was in the NHS for our service, and I can tell you now, they have some of the best outcomes.
Yeah.
Because of how targeted they were on the individual diagnoses and things like that. But the difference is that wasn't created with AI, that was created by a team. But there's no reason why AI couldn't create that
easily.
So things like automated workshops, the computerized module-based things where there's less sort of common factor skills and more straight into the interventions. Maybe AI is going to take over at that. And look, let's be honest, the NHS is on its knees, isn't it? So that could really help NHS services to get people into therapy. Is it the best therapy? Is it the right thing to do? That's not a question I should answer. I don't know. But, you can get people started with things maybe.
Yeah, I'm going back to your tattoo point. I've got a friend who's completely covered, really, really into it. And what he likes to do, it's kind of a hobby for him, but he likes artists, so tattoo artists. So he'll travel to America. He'll be on the waiting list for this guy in LA who, does this particular style in this particular way and does these particular kind of designs. And he really appreciates that, wearing people's art, and then he'll go over to some guy in, I don't know, wherever he goes, but it's just, that's like his whole thing. So again, it's like you can get AI and bots to do some work, but I do think there'll always be a space for people who want that more bespoke.
I think this is right. I think we're getting to a really useful conclusion here, actually, Tom, that you're right. And it just made me think, I get a lot of tattoo stuff coming up on my Instagram as I scroll through. And I had something from Bali popping up where people get knocked out under anesthetic with no tattoos, right? And then they have like 4 or 5, maybe 6 artists all working on them at the same time whilst they're unconscious. And then in a day, they've had like a whole body tattoo done, right? But it looks good to start with, obviously, because it's fresh and everything. But then I saw another video of people kind of saying, that's great, but it's kind of automation. It's convenient. You're not getting good level of work. You're not getting good artistry. You're just getting generic stuff. So it's a question of, am I getting a tattoo because I want to have a tattoo? Or am I getting a tattoo, like you say, because your friend who wants the kind of heritage to that tattoo and the culture and the person and their style and all those things? And I think that's the same in therapy. Do I want to go to therapy just because I want therapy, or do I want to go to therapy because I want to see this person who's a specialist in that area who can help me with this thing specifically and give me a really good experience of doing that as well?
I think that's exactly the right conclusion, because I've sort of experimented with ChatGPT. There's actually a therapy bot in sort of the ChatGPT plugin store thing. And I tried it out, and for me it was uninspiring. It was bland and predictable and cheesy, and just felt a bit yucky. But if I had, OCD and I'd seen your Instagram page, Tom, and I'd looked at your site and I'd listened to this incredible podcast.
Tom, stop. I'm blushing. Blushing.
You think to yourself that Tom would supersede anything the AI chatbot is ready to do for me right now. And I really do believe in that. I really strongly think that's what people feel.
And I really hope that's the way it goes in the future. I think it's inevitable that AI is coming. It's inevitable and we cannot stop it. And, it's coming everywhere, whether it's in therapy, academia, everywhere. But I really hope that we find a way to use it wisely and well. And if, there's some role for it, and then, we're still the specialists in these areas, Tom, and people still come to us for these things that just AI can't do, or maybe we even contribute to helping the AI do these things in some way. I think there'll always be that human input to that. At least maybe I'm speaking to hopefully, but hopefully it be that way.
Shall we do our hot seat questions in the last 5 minutes?
Yeah, good idea. Right.
What should we do? Shall I do?
Well, I'll fire them out and then you answer it, then I answer it. Is that all right?
Yeah, cool.
Okay. Therapists in the hot seat. Question 1. Would you let AI write your therapy notes, Tom?
I wouldn't let myself write my therapy notes at this point.
Yeah, so the quality is much better. Yeah. So that's a yes, you would?
I would.
Yeah, I would too. I think unless the client has a direct problem with it, and it's fully GDPR compliant and safe, then things like Heidi and things like that are wonderful tools to supplement our work. Next question. Would you use AI to create individual treatment plans?
I don't think I fully would at the moment. I think I would trust myself more. Yeah.
I think that's the right answer. I completely agree. I might use it to say, hey, come up with a generic pathway for the treatment of ARFID.
Yeah.
For something that I'm less familiar with that I can then pursue and follow and explore more. But I would never say, hey, this client is facing this problem and this challenge. What intervention should I use and what formulation should I use? I think at that point, that's just taking your job from you. and that's lazy therapists.
I think going back to that reel I mentioned earlier about the therapist with their mindfulness prompt in his ChatGPT, I think that's what they were thinking it was. And
Right.
I can understand that's why are you paying someone for that? Like,
yeah, got you.
Yeah.
It's like ordering somebody to come and build a pool, and whilst they're there, they're going, chat, how do I do a pool? What do I start with a pool? Yeah. Oh, it says we need a digger. We got a digger. We haven't. Anyway. Yeah.
Heat wave. That was your example.
Yes, heat waves. That's why I'm talking about it. Good. Okay. Would you recommend an AI therapy chatbot to clients?
I wouldn't recommend one. No, I think some of my clients do use them, but I wouldn't say I would recommend it. I think they can be too infinite in their advice. You know what I mean? Too open looped, as we mentioned on our last podcast. What about yourself?
Same. No, I wouldn't. I think, especially at this stage, I just don't think they are clever enough. I think they're far too people pleasy, even if you train it. And I also think that it could be too reassuring. And as we know, that can provide more problems and just keeps the problem going. So at this stage, no, I wouldn't. But I can understand why people do, because of access to therapy and the NHS being so difficult, private therapy being expensive. So it's not a criticism of people who do, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to clients to say, hey, if you're struggling, go chat to ChatGPT for a bit. And I'm not sure that would be helpful. Also, that there's the availability of that 24/7 really crosses therapeutic boundaries as well, and people becoming reliant on that is a whole other thing that we probably could have talked about more today. But anyway,
another time.
Here's the tough one, and this is thinking extremes here. If AI became demonstrably better at humans than outcomes, would you stop practicing?
Would I stop practicing? I wouldn't stop practicing, because maybe on average it might yield greater results than humans, but that doesn't mean for some of my like sort of longer standing clients or clients that would really resonate with me, it would be better. So I might still be able to provide value and a service to them that AI couldn't yet. But the flip side, Tom, as that question I mentioned earlier, if we do get the that universal basic income thing that
Oh,
they
yeah.
kind of mentioned, say no one's got any work, I would still do a small caseload for free just because, well, in moderation, essentially, I love what we do. Essentially, sometimes it's too much and sometimes the admin's too much or the work hours are too long, but at its core, I love being a therapist. So I would do it even just for selfish reasons, if nothing else.
Yeah. Good. I agree. I think there's always going to be a role for humans and for therapists, even if it's keeping AI in line, and quality assurance, maybe. But yeah, no, I completely agree with your answer. Would you see an AI therapist?
Not as they currently are. I don't think they're good enough yet by quite a long shot. Actually, just on that point you made a moment ago, so my therapist is my therapy is every Friday, and what's really special about that to me is I know I've got something to look for. I can kind of like bundle up all my little problems and worries in a little bag and wait until Friday to let them out. And that's great because it gives me something to look forward to, and it's also great because it means I contain myself well within the week, knowing I've got somewhere to express it in a few days' time. Whereas
Yeah, that's interesting.
yeah, as if I have an AI therapist, I've got no reason to contain it. And I could be having therapy 2 hours a day, and maybe that's not actually that useful or helpful for me. Maybe
Yeah,
it's just useful to park it for a moment and see it in due course.
quite right. It just comes into that therapeutic boundary, doesn't it? That if you're not postponing and delaying, then whenever we're triggered by something and our wise self is disconnected, we're straight on ChatGPT asking, for a problem or for advice, and we're not learning to sit with those feelings, to postpone, to delay, and that can then mean we feel much less confident in ourselves.
Definitely. Definitely.
Points, really good points. I would not see an AI therapist for those reasons. I just again don't think it's good enough. Although when I do go on the voice function, I do feel sometimes like I'm chatting to a friend. But I want him to be more of an employee than a therapist right now.
Right. Absolutely.
Um, okay, we've talked about this a bit, but just one part of therapy. What part of therapy do you think AI will never replicate?
Well, that thing I mentioned earlier about should I do this like task A with my life or task B? What was so great about what my therapist said to me was, so I'll just say what it was. I was wondering if I should live abroad for a period of time. And ChatGPT obviously can give yes and no, but my therapist had also lived abroad, and I know she'd lived abroad. So she gave it a resounding yes because she's got real lived experience of that and could empathize greatly with the sorts of questions I might be asking or uncertainties I might be experiencing. ChatGPT will never have that. It might be able to scrape blogs and articles and papers and studies, but there's something just genuine about it coming from someone who's really been through that human experience, which ChatGPT will never have been through, as I understand consciousness to be. And I don't think it could ever replicate that necessarily. It was a real meaningful conversation I had that time with her.
Yeah, I also think ChatGPT gets a bit confused on what you're asking. So, if you're saying, oh, should I live abroad? You're looking for that very human, reflective, values-based discussion, whereas ChatGPT might get very practical then on that. It's like, well, hey, if you need to do this, you need this visa, and you need that, and you can stay for this long before you need that. And it's like, whoa, hold on. This is far too practical and than actually, this discussion around values-based decision-making. And that can undermine then your confidence because you're not looking for that right now. You're not looking to go
No,
through the
yeah, I want to
procedure
think about
of
my feelings.
applying. We're just looking for, we're earlier than that.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Tom? Is there a part of therapy you think AI will never be able to replicate?
Lived experience, Tom. So as you know, a lot of the work I do is with OCD sufferers, and I'd like to get really alongside with my lived experience. So I think that wouldn't be genuine for as we understand AI to be. If it's not necessarily conscious, then how could it have that experience? And I think that constant doubt that OCD gives you would mean that people would just constantly doubt the AI, less than they would a human. I think. So yeah, I think it's lived experience and connection as well.
Agreed.
What scares you the most about AI?
I think from a societal, I mean, I wouldn't want to be a politician anytime soon, let's put it that way, because if, we know jobs have been affected, and I can only imagine that's going to be exponential over time. I wouldn't I wouldn't want to be someone who has to deal with society and the falling out of work and careers, and because everything we've ever built in society is based on sort of having income and being able to afford something. What happens when you eradicate that? Like, I have no idea what happens to the housing market or banks. I have no idea how that plays out. And I think the societal impact is what freaks me out the most. Personally, I'm not too concerned as an individual person because I think I'll find a way of coping. But that the societal impact, I think, is just going to be. Well, I don't know. It's completely uncertain, and my mind is catastrophizing it. That's what I do know. But I just don't know what that shock wave is going to do when, I don't know, 30 or 40% of the workforce don't have jobs to go to.
Yeah,
That does to
yeah, yeah.
no idea.
And then, the impact that has on well-being with not having routine, not having structure, not feeling like I'm contributing. Um, you know, Previously, whereas people would have things to focus their attention on, much less place to focus attention. What does that lead to? Um, and although you can argue that, well, actually, we're getting back to our more human roots, I understand. But at the same time, I think we've been like this for so long that people would be lost. And I would worry about what that would mean for well-being, therapy, access, all sorts of things.
Yeah. What
But
about you,
yeah.
Tom? What scares you most about AI?
Hmm. It's a really tough one. What scares me the most about it? Um, I think not understanding enough about it, exactly what it's doing, exactly what it's accumulating about people, that kind of thing. Um, so although I'm not, yeah, what's the word? Too cautious about using it. I'm very careful with what I put into it. So I won't put anything identifiable in any way about me, about anyone into it. It's very, very generic. So I think that's the thing for me is that where is all this data being stored? What's all going on with it? And yeah, what's going to happen to it all? Because there must be millions and millions and millions of terabytes, if not larger, of data, so already.
Yeah, and is there a motive to all this? Do humans have a motive for the use of AI, or will AI generate its own motives with time?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think that's the unknown, isn't it? We just don't know. It's very easy just to go on ChatGPT and type in, hey, what sort of car should I buy? But then, well, what's it get from that? Well, it probably gets a sense of the cars I'm looking at, my age bracket. It gets a sense of my interests, my current situation. Am I wanting to finance it? Am I wanting to buy it outright? It's how much of it is it gleaning from that, I think. So that's what scares me about it. But it doesn't stop me using it. It just means I'm just cautious with the information I put in, and I don't then put full stories in there, about
Mm,
me.
Good, good. And then the final question is, what excites you most about AI?
For me, I love technology and I love automation. When something is just done automatically, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. So I think, what excites me is creating really clean flows in business that can, help people access therapy, can generate worksheets for people, mean that everything is easy for everybody. And it also helps you then be the therapist you want to be because the stress levels that go into orchestrating that pre AI were much higher. So I think, yeah, any way in which we can automate processes to make a therapist job more therapist rather than accountant, marketing person, practice manager, that kind of thing, just to make it more the role we got into this for. So that's what excites me the most is be able to sit downstairs and not think, oh, I've got to go and do this when, actually that's all being automated.
Nice.
What about you?
Yeah, I'm struggling to think of something actually. In the short term, what excites me about AI? I mean, I honestly don't know. I think longer term, bigger picture, I find more exciting, but ever so slightly perversely exciting. Like, how bad is this going to get? Or how amazing? Hopefully, it's utopian, and we have this wonderful political system that does everything rightly and fairly and intelligently and correctly and promptly. I think that would be an exciting use of it, but I just don't know if that's how it will go.
Who knows? And I think that's a good place to end this.
Yeah.
In summary, there is a role for AI. It can do wonderful things. It can make our lives a lot easier right now, but it's still in a very primitive stage where there's a lot of things it can't do. And there's a lot of errors it makes, and, it hallucinates and it gets things wrong and all those things. So I think my summary for this is that we have to be careful with how we use it, but there's definitely a role for it right now in therapy, and it's not going to take our jobs just yet, but let's see what happens in the future. What do you think, Tom? Is that a concise summary?
A perfect, lingering open question for us to ponder.
I was actually reflecting about 20 minutes ago, like how fascinating it would be to revisit this podcast in like 10 years' time.
We won't need to, Tom. There'll just be bots doing it for us.
A summary of it already done.
Consciousness onto the cloud. You do yours. I'll have a lovely time.
Yeah, good. But yeah, no, I think it'd be really interesting to sort of look back on and say, gosh, remember when we were so naive and said it definitely couldn't take our jobs, and now we don't have jobs? No. I think that would be quite fascinating. All right. Well, look, I think we should call it there. So thank you everybody for listening. If you did, have any questions or thoughts, please do feel free to drop it into our Instagram or into the comments section on Spotify. And we'd really, really welcome a follow and a subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, anything that you want to do that on. Really helps us get to wider audiences. Tom, is there anything else you want to add?
No, just want to say it was a really interesting podcast this session. I think I felt quite adrenaline-y at points, so it was clearly something that matters to me. Very much a hot topic in society, so glad we're having a conversation about it. And just to second what Tom said, thanks for tuning in, guys. Feel free to share it with anyone you think would be interested, and get in touch if there's anything else you'd like us to think about with these therapists in the hot seat shows.
Thank you very much. Okay, take care and see you in 2 weeks.